take projection.
It's Monday night, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode, a bonus episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's up, guys? I'm Patrick Akers.
Once again, COVID has struck the Alabama Slam podcast. Patrick thought he was going to dodge it last week because I had it 2 weeks ago, and then somehow Patrick managed to not get it. But I guess somehow Chuck E. Cheese probably at a birthday party.
Chuck E. Cheese is if you have a young kid, Chuck E. Cheese is like a cesspool of every kind of sickness, disease that you can get your hands on. Yeah. And I think that's where we kind of narrowed it down. My wife got it first, and then I somehow skirted past it from Thursday to Sunday unscathed, and then Monday morning wake up feeling like shit, go test, hey, you're positive, you got COVID.
I told you weren't going to get out of it when you stayed home Thursday and Friday from work. I said, well, you know the shit's coming.
We tried. If I got a hold of us, we're gonna make the comeback though eventually.
Yeah, that's right. You gotta get that crowd. We're gonna get that slow clap.
We gotta get a clap going.
You gotta shake it off.
Shake it off. We gotta fire up like Hulk Hogan. Oh, I need to send you a video. I forgot. We need to post this on the Alabama Slam Instagram so people can see. I think I did send you the video. So I've been telling listeners I've been going through 96 Nitro pretty exclusively watching stuff, and I guess my 2-year-old has picked up on some habits. Because the other day I was sitting on the couch, and he straight up comes up and Hulk Hogan style hits me and then does the point, and he says, "I told you." And so the Hulkster is continuing to influence the next generation of wrestling fans. We're never going to get away from the red and yellow. Hulkamania is going to run wild forever.
I may download that little clip then and put it on our Instagram page.
Yeah, post it on there. Yeah, check out the Instagram page. Yeah, let's let people get a gander at what's going on in the Akers household during COVID.
Well, y'all bear with us. Patrick's mic is actually in his office across the hall from me. So he's using the mic on his computer, on his laptop tonight, just the outboard mic. So hopefully it'll sound all right. It sounds okay in my headphones, so it may sound okay in the edit too. So we'll see. So we were just talking right before we fired up about random dirt sheet stuff from the week. And you said there was a big firing just a few hours ago, and then I mentioned something that was on Ringside News that you said you hadn't heard yet. So do you want to go ahead and start off with the big firing?
Yeah, so John Laurinaitis has been let go from WWE. This was one of the Vince guys, along with Kevin Dunn, Bruce Pritchard. And so it seems like now with the new management of Nick Khan and Stephanie and Triple H, they are organizing a regime change, so to speak. And so Laurinaitis has been let go. You can go and look through the internet. There's all kinds of stories about Laurinaitis and some of the shitty things that he's done. I think even I didn't read too much into this. I think he had his own allegations of kind of some sexual misconduct or harassment or something along those lines. So, it's been rumored that Laurinaitis was a big reason why Sasha and Naomi walked off. And now it seems like with Triple H in the fold now, Sasha and Naomi are coming back to WWE. We had speculated if Tony Khan thought that maybe he could get his hands on Sasha and Naomi and bring them over to AEW, but looks like they're going back to WWE. And so, I would expect that this isn't the last Vince guy that gets let go. If you're Kevin Dunn, I'm sure that you are feeling the heat on your neck as we speak right now. He'll probably be the next one to go. And then, you have to think about Bruce Pritchard being next, being the head of creative there for Vince. It seems like Triple H is wanting to go in a different direction with the company. We saw Karrion Kross come back on SmackDown. That was a Triple H guy that got let go. So, a lot of interesting things happening over there. I'm still not convinced on the product. I've watched Raw and SmackDown. It's still...
I had SmackDown on in the background Friday night, but nothing really caught my eye.
Ricochet got a win, which is awesome. Yeah. I really love Ricochet, and my God, that shooting star press he hit. I don't even remember who he was wrestling, but we talk about high flyers all the time. We're primarily an AEW podcast, so we talk about Pac a lot, but Ricochet's right up there, man. Yeah. If WWE starts pushing guys like that, it's a lot of commitment from a wrestling standpoint to commit to that much programming every single week. But if it's good, I'll watch it. So we'll see. But yeah, Laurinaitis getting let go, Sasha and Naomi coming back in the fold. People seemed pretty positive about SummerSlam. I know you and TD kind of had your thoughts about it. And I kind of feel the same way y'all felt. It was bookended by two really good matches, one really good wrestling match and one really good spectacle, and then in the middle it kind of got bored. I think the people that were like over the top about how awesome SummerSlam was maybe suffering from a little bit of like Stockholm syndrome, just a little bit. And I don't mean that as an insult if you like WWE, but like if you've been force-fed that type of programming for years and something like SummerSlam comes along, I could see where you could be like, holy shit, this was really awesome, and be excited about the company. Bayley came back with her stable of girls. So, I think listeners probably know at this point I'm more interested in the in-ring action, the bell-to-bell, how the matches are put together, that kind of stuff. I don't foresee that changing too much, but if we get more pro wrestling and less sports entertainment from WWE, it could draw me back in the fold.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I did enjoy the Ricochet thing. I still think whenever I see Kofi, I feel like they did him dirty with his title run a couple years ago and just letting Brock squash him. I mean, obviously that's probably what would happen, but when they made the jump to Fox on Friday nights, they did Kofi a little dirty. But what I was talking about that just broke within the last couple of hours, and I only saw it on Ringside News on Facebook, and you said you hadn't seen it on Squared Circle Reddit yet, so I don't know how much it's out there or how much it is just a Ringside News thing. But there's allegations about Tony Khan's erratic behavior backstage, and he apparently had to convince a big name from walking off set and quitting very recently because of his behavior, and apparently he's been getting in the ears of talent pretty regularly, and some have said and speculated that it's worse than Vince McMahon ever did. So we'll have to see if there's any truth to any of that, or if that's just some bullshit that's come out. Don't know how far it'll spread. Like I said, it only popped up on Ringside News about 2 hours ago, so we'll see. I mean, he's been known to do a little toot, I think, so it wouldn't be much of a surprise. You get a little coked up and get on a set of headphones and start getting in people's ear. So who knows? And
who knows what to believe with these dirt sheets? I mean, they have a long history of being wrong. They have a long history of being right a lot of times too. So if that is the case, I mean, just speculating, if take it at face value that that's what's happening. We've talked about it time and time again on this podcast. He needs some help creatively, if that's the case.
Well, they did say we both, I think, were sending it to each other around the same time Friday, that he's elevated some people within the company to try to think. I think to try to help spread some of the workload, like QT and Sanjay and Pat Buck and some of these people. It said they've had different creative roles put on them and development.
I thought these were just talent relation roles. But it's creative.
There was one, I think, that was involved with creative. I could be wrong. I thought it was. But then that's what this article on Ringside said, too, was that maybe getting these people into more managerial positions than they were will help spread some of the workload and keep some of the stress or whatever off of Tony, and maybe he can just focus on some of the creative or whatever. So who knows?
Yeah, you look at... very rarely has the owner of the promotion also been the head creative force. Vince McMahon is kind of an anomaly in that sense, but Vince McMahon also, like we've talked about, had a staff full of writers. And, back in the Attitude Era, there was Jim Cornette, and there was Pat Patterson, and Bruce Pritchard, and Vince Russo, and all these guys. Like, even going back to the Territory days, I think Bill Watts at Mid-South had Dutch Mantell. Dusty Rhodes was the booker at one point, but never owned a promotion. So having the owner also be the sole creative force has not been a thing that wrestling has seen historically. So to take some of that load off, and the thing about a wrestling booker was the creative force and the talent relations force at the same time, right? So the booker back in the Territory days would he would, of course, be the matchmaker, but he would also sign the talent and negotiate the deals and do all that kind of stuff. So, like, yeah, spreading out some of these responsibilities. You can't have one guy doing everything in a modern day environment as fast as everything moves, as hectic as what everything moves. You need help in that kind of situation. So, yeah, we saw those talent relations things. Hopefully there's some creative input happening too, because I think that's probably also a big issue that AEW needs to kind of get figured out, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in this podcast. But yeah, man, we just got to get some help. And so I could see if he's overstressed, yelling at some talent, doing that kind of stuff. And a lot of those guys, let's be honest, if Triple H had been there 3 years ago, AEW probably doesn't have a lot of the guys. It might not have the Adam Coles of the world. It might not have the Miros or the Malakais or even the Bryan Danielsons. I mean, a lot of those guys left because they felt stagnant creatively. And so if Triple H is now running the ship over in New York, a lot of those guys are probably going to be enticed about going back if their contract comes up. So we'll see what happens. It's interesting times, that's for sure.
I say let's get on into Rampage, touch on a couple things there, and get into Battle of the Belts from Saturday night. Started off with your man's Mance Warner versus John Moxley.
Baby.
So I'll let you spend some time talking about Mance. He's a guy, I've seen his name on Twitter. I've seen Cassio tweet about him. He's buds with Cassio, I believe. He's been on his podcast, Cassio's Cut, at least once, if not twice. And I know he's buds with Corey Ryan Forrester, who I follow on Twitter, friend of the show. Had him on my old podcast once. He's a big wrestling fan, too. Just tell me a little bit about Mance Warner. There were a lot of people like, who? Who's this guy and why does he get a title shot? And I agree with him. Like, why is this dude getting a title shot? I was excited to see him just because I've heard his name mentioned and heard about how good he was. Did seem a little weird. Thought it was a good match. Just not sure that they needed to put him on TV to immediately get a title shot.
So I'll talk about Mance Warner first, and then we'll address the greater concern about the AEW World Championship just kind of floating and doing nothing right now. But as far as Mance Warner goes, I'll make this bold prediction right here, right now. If you give this dude 3 months of consistent TV time, he's going to be one of the most over baby faces in the company, point blank. There are not that many charismatic people in wrestling right now that are as charismatic as what Mance Warner is. And you saw it. They gave him an opening promo package. And what does he do? We talk about this all the time about wrestling characters. He hits on why he's there, why he's wrestling, what his motivations are, hitting the pay window. He's already got these catchphrases down. Like, you need things like that to stick in people's heads.
Light beers and lariats.
Light beers and lariats. The mouth of the Mid-South. The Southern Psychopath. Like, it rolls off this dude. We talk about charisma all the time, and he's got it in spades. I'll also say this, too, before I talk about the match. And this might sound a little bit sacrilegious, but hopefully listeners will kind of stick with me here. Guys like Mance Warner are way more valuable to a company than what somebody like a Miro or a Malachi Black is, for this reason. Miro and Malachi, because of the way that they're presented, they can really only fit at one space on the card, which is kind of that main event, upper mid-card level. Like, they have to be booked strong in order to get their character over, in a sense. Like, somebody like Miro's not going to lose to a Darby Allin, or shouldn't at least to. You know what I mean? Obviously, Miro has lost before in the past, but he has to be booked a certain way. And so that limits some of the things you can do with him. Miro can't really do comedy. Malachi Black can't really do comedy. And so if you're a booker or a matchmaker or a creative force, there's only certain ways you can use those guys. Whereas a guy like Mance Warner can do a little bit of comedy, can make it serious, he can do hardcore matches, he can do fights. You can slate him different spots of the card. That's why people like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in WWE are going to have a job for forever. The guys like The Miz, too. Because if you need to put them in a main event level spot for 2 months, they can do it, and they can get themselves over. If you need them to do comedy, they can do it, and they can get it over. If you need them to work with a celebrity, they can do it, and they can get it over, So having dudes like that who can be switchblades in a lot of different scenarios like that makes them way more valuable.
Yeah.
And like you talk about in terms of the match, like the match ain't like it's a fist fight. Like that's what they said they were going to do, and so that's what they did, you know. And man, kudos to Jon Moxley. You know, granted, I think you and I both have wished that during this interim time he would have had some kind of good angle to really sink his teeth into.
Yeah.
But you know, we've mentioned on this podcast before, he's like wrestling's folk hero right now. Like he just goes around to all these different promotions. Doesn't matter who you put him in the ring with, he's gonna have an awesome match. Like that's what he does. Like, and now with the situation, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place with the news that CM Punk might not be ready to return it All Out.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so that's been the kind of rumor now. And so now what do you do with Jon Moxley? And so while I like Matt Swarner being on TV, and hopefully at least he's in Ring of Honor full time, but I think there's a spot in AEW for him, and I think he's going to get himself over. He's going to sell a shit ton of t-shirts, and I'm just so happy for the guy being a fan of his. I've discovered him, I think, probably a year ago at this point, and I just went down the YouTube rabbit hole. So if you're not familiar with Matt Swarner out there, there's plenty of stuff on YouTube for you to see. But, you know, we've talked about the way this AEW World title has just kind of floated around doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so this is where it bites you in the ass, because now, if it's to be believed and CM Punk's not going to be back, now you don't have a match for All Out because you haven't built to anything.
Right.
And this is
True.
kind of the problem, like, when it's fiction and you can do whatever you want, there really is no sense to be in a holding pattern for anything. Particularly when your ratings have kind of been stagnant or have decreased. Like, you're not in the business of just trying to sell pay-per-views at this point. You should be in the business of trying to reach a wider audience and bring more people into the fold as fans. And so you got to be going 90-0 every time on Wednesday and Friday nights. In my opinion. Like, you got to book things that make people want to watch.
Yeah, they really got to work on the Friday night things. Like, usually there's a match or two that's worth watching, and I understand that they want to get some of the younger talent on TV, but I feel like they really got to step up, because really, if it's not on Wednesday night, then it doesn't really matter storyline wise. They're not doing a lot with the Friday night storylines.
No, I mean, you had 2 championships featured on this edition of Rampage. I don't think the Moxley and Manson one was for the championship. It was whatever they call their little, like, Eliminator Challenge, Open Championship or whatever. But the Swerve and Keith Lee thing was for the championship, and it was against one guy who we don't really care about, and Tony Nese. He's talented, but he's not been presented as any kind of threat. And then Josh Woods, who showed up last week.
Yeah.
So, like, even there in your tag team division, you have your titles kind of doing nothing.
Right.
And it was a good match, the street fight. Like, it had good spots in it. And this was overall an entertaining edition of Rampage. I think it was helped tremendously by the fact that it was live. And I think the way they filmed it, I think it had just come off Battle of the Belts. I think Battle of the Belts went on first. And so Rampage, like, you know, we'll get into Battle of the Belts and how awesome that shit was. But, like, that crowd was hyped from the start based off that stuff. So,
yeah, okay.
You know, we just got to we got to figure some things out. And we got to put some guys in the position. It could be, too, we have a problem that the roster's too big. I don't think we've mentioned it on this podcast before. That's been a critique that's been on the internet for a while now. You know, again, I'm going back through 96 Nitro, and like every single Monday, it's Hogan, it's Flair, it's Savage, it's the Giant. It's like 8 guys, and that's it. And AEW has, I mean, there's 3 dudes in one stable that are main eventers.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, I don't know. It might be a little too bloated. It might be that they are just not utilizing it properly. Like, who knows? But
yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they're bringing a couple more belts into the fold. They're going to have to spread some of that out to Friday night and make it entertaining and make it worth having on TV. Because the ratings for Friday night are horrible. Right. I'm a 45-year-old dude that doesn't go anywhere or do anything anymore. So what else am I going to do but watch wrestling on Friday night, but you got to figure out how to catch those people. I say let's move on real quick and move into what happened after the Mance Warner-Moxley match. QT comes out with a couple of guys from his stable from the factory and offers help to Ricky Starks. Stroke daddy. I mean, obviously Ricky Starks doesn't need the help of QT Marshall on TV. I mean, he could use some coaching backstage, I guess, but he doesn't need anything out of the factory. Not really sure what they're doing there other than to just be like, nah, I don't need you. But I mean, obviously we're big Starks fans, so I know you got a take on it.
You know, you guys talked about it last week, you and TD. Shout out to TD too for coming in clutch, hitting on the tag team, getting the hot tag last week.
Getting that hot tag, baby.
We got to bring it back for some stuff. I mean, what the fuck are we doing? Like, this was the Ricky Starks Hobbs angle was the hottest thing going 2 weeks ago on Dynamite. And like you guys mentioned on the podcast, they come back out, they follow it up the next week. The entire Hobbs, everything, entrance, the aftermath, all that, got 4.5 minutes. And Christian Cage and Matt Hardy got 15.
Yeah.
Now, and what sense does that make at all? It's not. That's what I guess that's what I'm talking about. Where it's like we're using guys that we don't need to be. I don't need to see Matt Hardy on TV at all. Like, I don't need to see Ricky Starks feuding with the factory. Why? Why? Why are we throwing that in there? Why not have Ricky just come back and cut another promo after he just got spine busted by Hobbs, setting up a match between the two of them? Like, we put these people in like these weird positions. The booking is kind of just like all over the place sometimes. Like, Ricky's there, man. The crowd's behind him. He's got everything you want. Like, put the rocket on him.
Give him a mic.
Give him a mic. Like, I don't like. There's nobody in the factory that's over. So what are we gonna do? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I figured you'd come in hot on that one. I just kind of shook my head on it Friday. I was like, what's happening here? So next up was Takeshita and Ryan Nemeth. Not much happening there, and we want to spend some time with Takeshita in a little while for Battle of the Belts. So I say let's get on into the Madison Rayne versus Layla Gray match. Madison Rayne's debut on Rampage apparently was also on Impact Wrestling that night. Did you see that?
Pulling the twofer.
Yeah.
The old twofer.
Yeah, and then at the end, Jade Cargill comes out and challenges Rayne to a match at Quake by the Lake. So they're setting up for a pretty good show, I think, at Quake by the Lake. What'd you think of this one for Friday night?
You know, I haven't seen a ton of Madison Rayne stuff. I know that she's accomplished and a good worker in the ring. I thought the promo was just kind of fine. I mean, it is what it is. You got to set something up. I guess my bigger kind of issue with it is, does this make sense? And the only reason I say that is because they presented to her as Madison Rayne's coming in to be a coach as well as a performer, right? And so we know, as fans and how exposed the business is at this point, that the coaches are basically just like producers. So they're helping people with their matches. So then how could someone be a coach that's going to help people behind the scenes and also be like, oh, here's this project in Jade that the company's really high about getting over. And so my job as a coach should be to help you get over, but also at the same time, I'm going to fight you and take your title. Does that make sense?
No. Now that you've put it so eloquently, no.
It's kind of weird. Like, why not just bring her in? You can put the press release out there that Madison Rayne's going to be a coach and a performer. That's cool. But like in the reality of the kayfabe show, so when Excalibur fucking says this is Wednesday, you know what that means. Till the end of the show, that part has to exist in a different reality, and it has to exist in a reality where everything makes sense. Yeah. So like
he didn't say it Friday, I don't think. Did he?
Yeah, they said it. They were like, she's a coach and she's also going to be an in-ring. She even said it in a promo, I think.
Oh, gotcha.
Not just the coach. I'm also going to be an in-ring competitor, and I'm going to take you out. Like that makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's about as bad as like Thunder Rosa coming out with the sandbagging shirt. Which we've mentioned on here before, like how dumb that is. Like,
Yeah.
like we get that kayfabe is dead, but when we're watching the show for those 2 hours, the kayfabe can't be dead. Now it can be strained, it can be blurred. MJF is a perfect example of that with his promo, but we can't just outright blast a fucking shotgun-sized hole in the middle of it for 10 minutes and then expect us to get back to normal reality. And maybe listeners don't feel that way. Maybe I'm, maybe COVID's got me a little bit cranky, but I was just like, that makes no sense. Now, all that being said, let's hope it's a great match. I mean, we both like Jade Cargill, I think, quite a bit, and we love Stokely Hathaway. So, his little shout out saying, from one beautiful person to another, he's just so good in everything he does, man. Like,
yeah,
he's excellent. But yeah, when I watched that, I was like, this makes no sense. But I'm down for the match if it's good.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be a pretty good match between Cargill and Rain Wednesday at Quake by the Lake.
She's got a hell of a crossroads. It's way better than Cody's. Cody's wishes his crossroad looked as good as what Madison Rain's did.
Damn.
So, hers was good.
Well, let's touch on the street fight for just a bit. You already kind of gave a brief opinion on it. I really want to get into the Battle of the Belts. Again, what are we doing here on Friday night with Tony Nese and Josh Woods pairing up, and then all of a sudden getting a street fight with Swerve and Keith Lee? They could do better for a Friday night main event if we want to try to get ratings up.
Yeah, but that's not, and that's booking wise. But in terms of like what the guys in the ring did, I thought this was a really fun match. The wrestlers can only worry about so much. They can't.
Right.
They got no control over about where they're putting the car. But like when the bell rings, like that's within your control. And so these guys went hard, man. I thought the German suplex spot at the end was really nice. I thought the protein powder in the eyes that's an old school wrestling thing with powder. Like I love that. I love Mark Sterling going through a table. The Josh Woods where he got Swerve in the suplex and then just ran him and spun him into the steel steps. Like that looked awesome. So like it was a good. I was entertained, but yeah, like you've mentioned and we've mentioned before, like ad nauseum at this point, like we're just kind of directionless. So we wish that some more direction would take place, particularly because the pay-per-view is the 4th? So like we're a month away.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I say let's go ahead and get into the Battle of the Belts. Wardlow versus Jay Lethal came in hot for the first, right out of the gate. They were like, we got an hour, we got 3 matches, let's go. And that was a nice way to start. Putting Thunder and Hayter in the middle was nice because we knew we'd probably see Claudio and Takeshita at the end. But Wardlow and Lethal did not disappoint. I thought at one point Wardlow was going to try to get Satnam Singh in that in the symphony. Didn't quite get him up there. I think they. Do you think that's the thing that like they tried and maybe a rehearsal and a practice, and then we're like, we're gonna have to break this up?
Yeah, no. I think if they're gonna do it, they're gonna save it for a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I'll say this: if Wardlow manages to powerbomb Satnam Singh, it will be the greatest visual in the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
I'll just put that out there. It'll be way more monumental than Hogan slamming Andre. WWE built that up as like Andre's never been slammed. Everybody slammed Andre. Andre was working a decade before and got body slammed all the time in the territories. I don't know if Satnam Singh can personally get himself up there. And so they might do a cop-out where like Satnam tries to do something like a Vader bomb where like Wardlow can just get underneath him, where like the hard work, because the hardest work in a powerbomb is just getting somebody up on your shoulders. So if they do that and like, figure out some kind of way to skip that step, like it'll still be cool, but it won't be as impactful. But if they can pull it off and he can actually do it, holy shit, the ring better break. Like you better, if you're gonna make it a spectacle, make it a spectacle. Like if Wardlow manages to powerbomb Satnam Singh, it might be the point then where like you have to push this dude to the main event level because it might be a fucking ruckus kind of situation if he's able to do it. But yeah, going back to the match, I thought this match was great. People know how I feel about Lethal. I wish he wouldn't get beat every single time he's on television. You know, I think he's a main event player. But whatever reason they don't view him that way, it's cool. Like, he can still get himself over with the matches. The matches are always great. But, I mean, at this point, there's nothing to lead you to believe that he's ever going to be a contender for anything. I mean, he gets smacked all the time. But good match overall, and I still like Wardlow. I think Wardlow needs to be on TV every single week. Just smashing guys.
Yeah, he's clearly still over as hell, too.
But he's kind of been disappeared, you know? I think he's had a pre-taped promo here and there, but, like, I guess he had that thing with Cassie a couple weeks ago, but, like, I think he needs to be on there every week. Either Dynamite or Rampage.
Yeah, I kept thinking, too, and maybe I just put too much stock in it, that he showed up the other night to kind of help out Best Friends, which is what sparked this Wardlow versus Lethal thing. I kept thinking that maybe while he was getting stomped after the match, that at least Trent or somebody would come out.
I did have that in my notes. What a piece of shit those guys are, right? They didn't come out and help him at all? He got put through a tape and nobody came out?
No, I mean, they went to commercial and, like, he was just laying there on
just
the fucking ground.
Yeah. If I was Wardlow, I'd come back and be like, hey, okay, so fuck you guys then, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool. I'll let you get your ass whooped next time.
Yeah, y'all some bitches.
Yeah. All right, come out. Try to make the save at least, you know?
I didn't know if I was the only one thinking that or what. But
yeah, again, that's one of those minor things that when you're the sole creative force, when you're the matchmaker, little details like that are going to slip through the cracks, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just thinking about all this other kind of stuff. So you're like, hey, when you're setting it up beforehand, hey, you know, they're going to beat you down after the match. Well, no one brings up the fact that, like, oh, logically, wouldn't Cassidy and Trent and Chuck come out because, like, I helped them and, like, they're baby faces, I'm a baby face, like, but that's where, like, another writer could have been like, hey, what if we, you know, they could put him through a table, but, like, you need to come out and make the save.
I didn't look to see if maybe something happened in the commercial break or whatever, but I just kept thinking in terms of, you and I had this discussion before about there's nobody backstage that'll come help Wardlow because to them, you know, other than the fact that he turned on MJF, everybody still thinks he's a piece of shit because of the way he's acted the last 3 years.
Right.
So, I don't know. Maybe something happened in the commercial break, but I didn't see anything about it. I mean, I didn't go digging either, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't have to go dig. If you're going to do that, it needs to be on television where people can see it.
Right. I mean, at least leave him out there to come back from the commercial break or something. I mean, I don't know. Or, you know, at least have the commentators be like, hey, during the commercial break.
Well, they just need to come out and try to stop him from getting his ass whooped. You know, they can get smacked down in the process. That's cool. Like,
sure.
But they at least need to come out and make the save, considering he's done that for them, you know?
Right. Well, yeah, overall, excellent match. I thought all three of the matches from that night were pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, I thought this was really good, but I think it was the weakest of the three, for sure. I think the other two were really, really good.
Yeah. So up next was Thunder Rosa and Jamie Hayter, and I know you were very much Team Jamie Hayter, and a little bit pissed maybe that me and TD didn't spend much time on her.
You guys talk about the women's division, and I think TD mentioned Jamie Hayter for like 5 seconds. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves. There is one star that rises above them all in this AEW women's division, and it is Jamie Hayter. She is absolutely incredible. Like, everything about her. Her look, her presentation, her work rate inside the ring. Like, and because, like, I did a little bit of wrestling, like, I did it for like 2 years, I have like a little bit more like understanding probably about what makes somebody good. You know, you hear people all the time talk about like, oh, this person's a good worker, this person's a good worker. It's little things like footwork, like timing, like your ability to bump and get up off the canvas. If you'll go back and watch the first little bit of that match, I think it was in like the first like 3 minutes, she takes either 2 drop kicks or something like that. She takes 2 back bumps and she's up and down. She's boom, boom. Like, the athletic ability to be able to do that is like impressive. Even the way she snaps on her suplexes with the back bend and the force, like, we've been wanting somebody to step up in this division. And like, she gets no kind of screen time. She gets no promos whatsoever. If you go and look at AEW's YouTube little 8-minute video they did to kind of set up Battle of the Belts, literally everybody got a promo but her. Like,
really?
Yeah, that's a travesty. Like, if you're looking for an AEW women's star, this is it. Stop looking. Here she is. And I think this was the time to really get the belt off Thunder Rosa. Now, I like Thunder Rosa. We've talked about it before. Like, her issues are the same kind of issues that a lot of babyface champions have, which is just like they don't have anything to chase at that point. Well, like, these two had amazing chemistry. This match was phenomenal. Kudos to the women's division for, we've been critical of them on this podcast for the last couple of weeks, but that tag team match on Dynamite that you guys talked about, and then this match here at Battle of the Belts, both of those were great. And so, like, that's what we need to be doing week in and week out. And so if you're looking for somebody like Jamie Hayter's it, man. Like, this was phenomenal. And like, her matches she could have with Toni Storm, her matches she could have with Britt Baker. At some point, you have to think Hayter's going to turn, because I think Hayter's probably more naturally a babyface, particularly in her ability to sell. That's one thing babyfaces really need, is the ability to sell. And so I think she can get herself over that way. Yeah.
Well, this is the one I thought, this was the one belt that would change hands that night, because you had stated, and I can't remember if it was on mic or off mic, that eventually there's got to be a belt change at one of these Battle of the Belts. Otherwise, why should people watch?
Right.
Because they know what the outcome, other than just like, hey, I want to see a good match.
Right.
Because these were 3 fantastic matches.
Yeah, you got to build some excitement in there at some point for something.
Right. So this is the one I thought we'd actually see a title change. And I was a little surprised that it went the opposite way. It was good, great match. It was fun, really fun. But yeah, that's not the results I expected for the evening.
So do you think they're going to do a 4-way at the pay-per-view for the belt? Because if the 4 biggest stars, the women's stars in the company, these are the 4 that were in this thing: Toni, Thunder, Britt, Jamie. Like, Jade's just not there yet in her ability to work long matches, I think. She's there in her presentation, particularly with Stokely, but like, she's not, I don't think she's at the level of these 4 women.
No. Yeah, I don't know about a 4-way match. I don't know what they'll do. I mean, I figure the belt will come off of Rosa at that point, right?
Right.
Don't you think?
I mean, yeah, you would think, yeah. But like, what do you do? Because you're gonna have to turn. If that's the case, then you're gonna have to turn. Like, you don't want to just rerun Jamie versus Rosa in a singles match at the pay-per-view. You don't want to do Thunder and Britt again. You don't want to do Thunder and Toni again. So like, put them in a 4-way. I think you can do something where in the next couple weeks, you can break apart Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker. Also, a little good piece of foretelling: Jamie Hayter, I don't think, has ever done the DMD on screen.
Really?
I don't think she's ever done that. I went back and watched some stuff, and anytime she's been there, she's just kind of been the stoic person. Like, Rebel's always done it.
Yeah.
But Jamie's never done the DMD on screen, I don't think. I could be wrong about that, and somebody might post a GIF, but like...
Yeah, somebody holler at us.
I don't think I've seen it. Which is a nice little wrinkle.
You pick up on that shit better than I do. I say let's move on into Claudio versus Takeshita, unless you've got any final thoughts.
No, just all the Jamie Hayter. Buy the stock now. This girl's
all hater all the time.
She's also, I only think, 25 years old.
Really?
Yeah, which is just, it's like, that's where it comes from, like working overseas, working in Japan, where women's wrestling is really at a top-notch level. So yeah, she's incredible.
Well, I thought at a couple of different points in this match that Claudio and Takeshita might kill each other. They were going so hard. Takeshita's flying lariat off of the rope. It's fucking awesome.
It's great.
And that dude just looks like a fucking champ. And I'm gonna be real sad if he's out soon. Which, I know he was only here for a little bit. but I keep hoping that he'll get like a full-on contract. But I don't know what to expect there.
Well, I think I texted you after this happened. I was like, talking about Takeshita. I was like, this motherfucker is going to make me have to pay $7 a month to watch damn DDT when he goes back to Japan.
Yeah.
Like that's how good this dude is. This dude,
I think he'll get signed here.
Top 20 in the world.
He'll get signed here. There was a headline earlier that said that there was a chance that WWE might go after him, with Triple H trying to make some splashes in the creative world now. That, I mean, I don't know though. There was, of course, some racist motherfucker in the comments talking about just another person that can't cut a promo.
Right.
I'm not paying for pay-per-view for that.
Yeah,
some horse shit.
Stupid. You know,
Can
but
he
that's
fucking wrestle?
That's WWE has always kind of lagged behind in Japan. New Japan and Vince, I don't think ever really had a great relationship. Now, New Japan had that relationship with WCW, and in fact, I might be wrong about this. I think the biggest pro wrestling crowd in history was the collision card between New Japan and WCW that they did in North Korea. I think they put 300,000 people in an arena for a show. And there's some funny stories came out of that about, you know, them going to Flair and Sting and all those guys going to North Korea. Like, you listeners can look that up. But yeah, like, New Japan always had that close relationship with WCW, and now it seems like AEW has kind of stepped into that fold. You know, for whatever reason, like, I think whether you want to think Shinsuke Nakamura has been botched in WWE or if he's lived up to the potential I think he could have, you know, that's a debate I guess you want to have. So does Takeshita take that into consideration? You know, does he look at the way WWE has kind of treated some Asian wrestlers in the past and maybe decide against it? Maybe decide to stay in Japan or decide to stay with AEW and work a lighter schedule, because it's not only for these wrestlers, you know, it's not just coming over to the States, but like if you're in WWE, you have to move your whole family over here, and the culture shock that goes into that, like, that's a big deal too. So we'll see what he decides to do, but I mean, his talent is unquestionable. And man, like, when we talk about at the end of the year, this is going to be one of the best TV matches of 2022. I mean, this was incredible. Everything about it, like, they worked a Greco-Roman knuckle lock at the beginning of they did a Greco-Roman knuckle lock sequence at the beginning of the match, and it got a standing ovation. Why? Because fucking wrestling still works. If you do pro wrestling well, people will still stand up for it. You don't have to do these dives and these 450s all the time. Like, if you get two guys that are hot and you get the crowd behind it, you can just work a knuckle lock, and the fucking crowd gives you a standing ovation. Like, it's amazing to see. And like, they took their time with this. That's what I love too. Like, they sold the moves, and it started off hot, and then they took their time in the middle of it, and then at the end, man, the last 5-10 minutes, they turned it up to 11, and they just started beating the shit out of each other and hitting big move after big move. Like, everything about this was great. The jumping knee into the Death Valley driver, I was like, holy shit, like, that looked amazing. Like, everything about it, it was just these two guys are great. Like, this is the kind of direction AEW needs to run in. You got to be the home of pro wrestling, not sports entertainment. If they try to do the way of WWE and start trying to come up with like spectacles a la Brock Lesnar flipping the ring at SummerSlam, as great as that is, and that's going to be one of the best visuals in pro wrestling history, like, you can't do that as AEW. Your moments have to come differently. Your moments have to be like MJF cutting the promo where he calls Tony a fucking mark. Your moments have to be Claudio and Takeshita going out for 15 minutes and tearing the house down. Like, that's what you should be doing. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know what more to say. Like, everything about this was awesome. I love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, that was good shit. It was definitely worth an hour of time on Saturday night. You know, and this was obviously the closer for the night, because he knew these two guys were going to get at it and put on a great show. It's a shame that, like, I kind of feel like it might be the last we see of Takeshita for a little bit. I hope it's not. I I mean, I think within a year or two, he could be a main eventer on a pay-per-view, you know?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked in the excursion stuff. I mean, if this is the end of his stateside excursion, then what a swan song this is. And like I said, he'll make me get out my credit card and pay $7 a month for DDT.
Yeah.
You know, but other people have said this too, you know. What if him and Pac have a match at the pay-per-view and he wins the All-Atlantic title and defends it overseas quite a bit? Because even if he's going back to Japan full-time, you can still bring him over every now and then.
Sure.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does. But, man, that dude's got superstar written all over him.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been homesick with COVID, so there's not a lot that's probably actually done up real good. But tell me, do you have anything that is done up real good?
Let's see. I finished The Bear. We talked about that. You talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's fantastic.
It was extremely my shit a couple weeks ago. Everything
about it is great.
You texted me the other night and said I'm about to watch episode 7. So what'd you think? Was the single shot take, was that too masturbatory for you, or do you? No,
see, that's what I like. Like, if you're gonna do a single take, that's the way you do it. We were probably 6-7 minutes into the episode before I was like, oh, they haven't cut. Like, it's one take. And like, I'm not a big style over substance guy, as you probably listeners of this podcast can tell by now. Like, if the substance isn't there, I don't give a shit. Like you said, it becomes masturbatory. It just becomes a bunch of filmmaker stuff being like, oh, we can put the camera here and do this. And it's like, yeah, but what these characters are saying is fucking dog shit. So who cares, like, what the camera's doing at this point? But, like, for The Bear, it just kind of floated. And, like, being in the care of a storyteller like that and, like, a story like that, a lot of people called it intense and stressful. And while, like, it has elements to that, certainly, but, like, for me, I just kind of, like, as soon as the first episode started and we got 5 minutes in, I just kind of sat back and I was like, this is going to be good. Like, my time and my attention is going to be rewarded in detail. Like, you could just tell it had it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And, like, that's the first I've really ever seen of Jeremy Allen White. I know he was in Shameless, but I never watched Shameless. That dude's a star. I don't know if anybody has ever looked
Cousin.
I don't know if anybody's ever looked cooler smoking a cigarette on screen than fucking that dude with the hair and the tats. Yeah. Also, did he get like more fit as the season went?
I think he did.
Them fucking biceps were damn bulging by the end of the show, and I was like, is Disney coming for him? Like, are they about to cut him a fat check and he's gonna put on a cape or something?
Blaine said in Taking It Down, another Alabama Take podcast, just last week after they finished The Bear, he suggested that maybe put that dude as the new Wolverine. And I was like, well, he's pretty small in stature. He could play Wolverine. And if he's gotten fucking ripped, let's go.
Yeah, it definitely seems like, because you know how these things go. They probably shot the pilot first. Yeah. Maybe a couple weeks, and then they got the green light to shoot the rest of them. And so maybe his agent or somebody saw the pilot and was like, hey, man, there's going to be some offers come your way after this. So maybe we try to, hit a little bicep curls every now and then, do a little 21s, hit the creatine and the whey protein. Like, maybe I need to go back and watch the first episode. Maybe he was that way from the beginning. I don't know. But, like, he definitely looked more swole as it went on.
Yeah. One of the things, I had seen it like as a screenshot or something, and my wife pointed it out. And neither of us have ever worked in the restaurant business, but we thought it was amusing that at one point when he's out back with what's the guy's? I just blanked on his name. It's the guy they kept calling cousin. Was it?
Oh, Richie. Richie.
He was out back smoking, and he's got just like one of those plastic to-go containers. Yeah. And he's drinking out of it, instead of like a real cup.
Yeah.
Little things like that I thought were great. And I meant to ask TD about it. TD's worked in the restaurant business. I meant to ask him last week while he was on. So was that your done up real good, or did you have anything else too? I know we just kind of launched into that.
Yeah, that's my done up real good. I'm gonna actually working on an article right now. I was gonna write a review about the bear, but then I realized that like the Alabama Take guys or Taking It Down guys did it, and I'm suggest listeners go listen to them. Adam and Donovan and Blaine, they do a great job breaking it down. So I'm gonna work on little mild spoilers here. So if you haven't seen it, listeners, fast forward maybe 15, 20 seconds in this podcast. I'm going to write an article about how nobody plays a dead brother better than John Bernthal. Because he has the exact same role in Peanut Butter Falcon. I don't know if you've seen Peanut Butter Falcon.
Oh, no. Yeah.
It's literally the same thing, where he is the dead older brother of the main character. But in Peanut Butter Falcon, he like doesn't even have any lines. He's just there. He's there in flashbacks. And like the scene in him and the bear where they finally show Mikey, and like Bernthal's just there holding court in the kitchen. Like that dude's a fucking masterful actor. So like that's what I'm working on now. It's gonna be a little bit comedic. I'm also gonna try to get into some Ed Harris stuff, because Ed Harris is also. I've had this running joke amongst like my movie going friends, which is like the Ed Harris Award, which basically is an award you give to an actor who is never the leading man, but he's like between second and sixth on the call sheet. But like if you get him on the movie, he automatically just kicks it up a letter grade. So if you have a C movie and you have Ed Harris in it, you make it a B. If you got a fucking A minus, it goes to like all time great. And if you go down Ed Harris's filmography, like it's just fucking banger after banger after banger. Yeah. It's like Gravity's an awesome movie, and it's got Sandra Bullock and George Clooney in it, but they needed somebody to play the voice of the ship, and who'd they get? They got fucking Ed Harris. Because anytime you can get Ed Harris, you just go get Ed Harris. And that's how I feel about John Bernthal now. Whereas like if you're making a movie, TV show, anything, if you can get John Bernthal, go get him. Even for a movie like Wind River. Have you ever seen Wind River? Mm. Wind River, Taylor Sheridan, the guy that created Yellowstone. Great movie. He's got Elizabeth Olsen in it and Jeremy Renner. Another little mild spoiler for fans out there. You never seen Wind River. The last 15 minutes of the movie, John Bernthal just has a cameo, just randomly, and it's the most important scene in the whole movie.
See, dead brother.
John Bernthal now has. I think he's taken the title from Ed Harris, because Ed Harris, it's a strictly mid card title. You know, once you hit main event level status, you kind of go out. You can't be the Ed Harris winner anymore. Ed Harris has been a solid, just intercontinental champion for like fucking 40 years now. And Bernthal, I think, is up there. Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to get like super emotional at the bear, because sometimes I'll get super emotional on a thing like that. But I did get a little emotional when he was reading. He finally got the card from his brother, and it had that callback to the Let It Rip thing. I was like, oh, those motherfuckers got me.
They almost did my favorite thing that any movie or TV show does too. And I pop every time it happens. Whereas they say the name of the movie or the show in the actual show. And they almost did it. She looked at him and she said, "What's the restaurant going to be called?" And I was like, if he fucking says the bear, I'm going to jump up out this fucking couch right now. And then, of course, he didn't do it. They held it back. You know, he does a little sign, but like, that's a little like film geeky thing. Like, anytime that happens, man, I'm just like, that's good shit. Yeah. I love it.
It's like DJ Khaled calling out his own name at the top of the track.
Yeah. It never gets old for me. You know, it's like Flair climbing to the top rope and he gets thrown off every single time. Like, doesn't matter how many times I see it, I'm always going to pop for it. It's always the greatest thing ever.
Well, tying into your done up real good, this week, my done up real good was Counting Crows, because ever since I heard Have You Seen Me Lately in The Bear, I've been on Counting Crows kick again. And just listened to them all fucking Saturday night when Battle of the Belts was over. I was like probably a couple of glasses of bourbon deep. I went in for number 3, queued up Counting Crows, and just went hard on Counting Crows the rest of the night. And it was awesome. The soundtrack was fucking amazing in The Bear. I don't know what they paid for. They didn't pay a ton because they got like some B-level tracks for like, they didn't go for Around Here. They didn't go for A Long December. You know, they still probably paid a little bit of money for Have You Seen Me Lately. They went fucking Iron Lung, Radiohead. They didn't go like top of the Radiohead songs, Karma Police or anything. Same thing with Pearl Jam. They went with Animal. Probably paid a little bit of money, but whoever the fucking music supervisor was for that show did a great job. When at the very end of the first episode, he fucking throws that can of tomatoes in the trash and then cut to black, just smash cut, and it starts playing Animal by Pearl Jam. I looked at Jamie, my wife, for those of y'all that listen. I was like, hey, I'm fucking in. They got me. And she's like, was it the Pearl Jam? And I was like, no. I was like, but I mean, that didn't hurt it. I just all counting crows Saturday night for me until I got a little too into the bourbon and had to switch back to Metallica. But
as it goes.
Yeah, as you do. Well, that'll do it for this one. We'll be back Thursday. Nope, we'll record Thursday, and we'll have a new episode Friday. Patrick will still be at home. He won't be allowed to come to work, but we'll give you a quick recap of AEW Dynamite then, and see if any news pops off between now and then. And if you don't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Alabama Slam Pod. You can follow the Alabama Take with all of our other brother and sister podcasts taking it down. As we've referenced on this show, go check out their episode from last week and hear their recap of the Bear. Very excellent stuff. They also talked about an article that Patrick wrote where Patrick defends Adam Sandler as one of the greatest American actors. And did a damn good job, a convincing job of that. And so the fellas on the podcast, and Natalie, they brought in Natalie Morrow to kind of go over that essay as well. But give us a follow everywhere. Share us with your friends. We've picked up a couple of likes here and there in the last week or two. But we need to keep building this thing. Go get a t-shirt or a coffee mug at tpublic.com. You can
got a sticker.
Either Alabama Slam. Patrick got a sticker.
My sticker came in. It's on my laptop right now.
Didn't you say you got a mug too, or no?
I got a mug too. I don't know where the hell the mug's at. I guess the mug takes longer than a sticker.
Sticker's pretty easy to print, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, look us up there at TeePublic. You can search Alabama Slam, or you can get merch for the Alabama Take. You can get Taking It Down shirts. You can get This Song Sucks shirts, and whatever else you want over there. And give us a review on Apple Podcasts too if you haven't done that already. Tune back in Friday morning. We'll be here, and hopefully be recapping what I hope will be an excellent Quake at the Lake. And y'all wish Patrick some good vibes and recovering from this COVID bullshit.
We're gonna get it eventually. The sunset.
You gotta get this rally coming. You gotta Hulkamania that shit up, baby.
See you, Corey.
All right, man. Thanks.